Welcome to the FML podcast, the podcast on a mission to uncover actionable insights, explore the latest trends, and to catalyze your fintech's growth. Join Growth Gorilla's founder and managing director, Shameer Sachdev, and some of fintech's hardest-hitting marketers and leaders.
Welcome everyone to today's episode of the FML podcast. Today we're joined by Fidelma McGuirk, founder and CEO at Payslip.
Hi Shameer, great to be here. Thanks very much.
Yeah, thank you for joining us today. I'll start as we always start. Tell us a little bit about yourself and kind of your journey so far in terms of kind of where you are now with Payslip.
Sure. Great. Well, great to be here on FML podcast here with Growth Gorillas. We're really excited to be here with such a great network of founders and interesting marketeers in the whole fintech space. So Payslip is a technology company. We provide automation and integration technology for global payroll operations. What does that mean? Everybody loves payday. They love getting paid. But actually, when you get your payslip, you'll see that there's a lot of different lines of data and pieces of information on it. And actually, there's a whole process that goes way behind that back into finance and HR in any company to ensure that people get paid the right amount, that they get paid on time, and that everything is compliant from a tax and social security perspective. And payroll is always local. Every country is different. So in the UK, you have national insurance. In Ireland, we have bike allowance. In Germany, they have church tax. Questions that you have to ask in Germany would be illegal in other countries and other countries. So payroll is always something that's very specific to one country. And how it's managed and processed is important to be compliant in that one country. But for global companies, they need to be able to manage it in a standardized way across all of the different countries so that they know that they're unifying all their employees with a good payroll experience from a HR perspective, that they're paying them on time from a contract perspective and the right amount, and of course that they're compliant in the local laws. And so what Payslip does is we look at the global payroll process as a start and ending process that, as I said, goes from HR to finance, that needs to be standardized at some global level while providing flexibility for all the different countries. And so what we do is we standardize the process, we standardize the data, and we automate all the data flows, all the validations, all the controls, the workflow, the communications, the reminders. And I can probably give you a few kind of client examples that might make it a bit more visual. But we fall within fintech in that we automate FinOps, which is financial operations.
For a layman like me, and in fear of being told off for asking this question, obviously you can run payroll through platforms like a Xero or a QuickBooks. Where does kind of Payslip fit into that kind of scenario? Or are you aimed at more companies who are kind of above and beyond the Xeros and the QuickBooks of the world?
Yeah. So that's a really good example. So Xero and QuickBooks are softwares that were developed country by country. So they don't actually talk to each other across countries. They're specific to each country. And they usually target the SMB size of company. So when you're running your payroll on Xero or QuickBooks, you need to have a fair understanding of the payroll in that country. You don't have to be payroll qualified. You need to have a fair understanding of what you're doing. You need to have understanding of some of the local HR data, some of the local finance data, how it has to feed into it. But it becomes very local country knowledge specific. So there's two things there. One, if you're a multinational company and you have 27 countries, you're going to have some countries with loads of people, with like thousands of people. And then you have what's called the long tail. So lots of countries are smaller. So you might have 27 countries, but actually 5 of them have over 1,000 people. And then you might have another 10 that have over 500 people. And then the rest of them might actually have under 50 or under 100. So by the time you get to a sales team in Israel or a production team for your design agency, for example, in Shameer in Estonia or wherever you have it, you might only have 5 people in one place or 50 people. It's not enough people to validate having a full-time payroll resource or a finance person with the experience in payroll to run it properly. So you're not going to go to QuickBooks in Estonia and buy the license fee and pay 500 quid in that country and do that across another like 17 countries and then have somebody trained up to do it for that 2 hours in a month. So what happens on at least the long tail countries, under 100 people, usually under 500, is most multinational companies outsource the payroll to an accounting firm or a payroll bureau. And once you start outsourcing it, then there's a lot of data being managed internally and sent out and coming back. And then what you can do is you can at least have a central small team who understand the overall standardized global process. So all of our customers are multinational. We say that they need to be in more than 5 countries for, to really use the platform. Usually when they're coming to us, they have about 12 countries at that point. And they're at a large enough size to know that payroll is messy and that they need a standardized way of processing it. And they usually already have the services set up with an accountancy firm.
That explains it perfectly. The kind of main question I kind of want to jump to is to talk a little bit about your growth. I mean, our podcast is focused mostly on sort of the marketing side of things. Looking at your numbers, it kind of blew me away. But even more so now that you've said that you focus on multinational organizations. So you've got, is that right, 110,000 customers on your platform?
No, I think 110,000 users might work. So we have, it's probably past that at this point in time. So we have over 40 multinational companies on our platform, and they process their payroll in more than 80 countries every month. And then they have thousands of employees in some countries and hundreds in some others. So we've over 110,000 employees using the platform to receive their payslips and to receive their payroll documents. And then there are additional thousands of employees whose payroll is processed through the platform, but their payslips actually maybe go back through our platform to Workday or to SuccessFactors. But you're right, the tricky bit for our growth was that, and there are easier ways to decide how to set up a company. The tricky bit is that I decided to set up a platform that would solve a global problem for multinationals, for employee-sensitive data, for a process that had to run every month in a very short period of time. So when you're a startup, you're going to a multinational company who has very professional procurement processes, and they want to make sure that you're going to be around in a few years, that you're not going to run off of the data, that you're not going to run off with any money. There's lots of security and risk factors that they include in their procurement to ensure that you are a company that can actually deliver to them at the multinational level. And so within Payslip, when I started building the platform, testing it, rolling it out, and building out the company itself, there were building blocks that I had to put in place to ensure that we would pass the multinational procurement processes successfully. They were important and tricky.
I mean, it's a very specific, but also a very big problem that you're solving. What did it look like in terms of getting your first sort of handful of customers on board and getting them to work with Payslip? Did you kind of have like a little black book of individuals, or did you have to kind of, stomp the pavement and such and go find them?
It was a combination of things. I in my previous life, how I had the idea was I'd worked in an international tax company and in different roles, but ultimately as international director of operations and as CEO. And I built out operations across more than 20 countries. And so problems arising across payroll in lots of different ways. And because we were a tax company, I went to lots of conferences and knew lots of accountancy firms and international companies. So initially when I was doing the research back in 2015, 16, 17 to scope out exactly what the product would be, I did have a network of both multinational companies that could be potential clients and also accounting firms that would be payroll providers plugging into the system. So a lot of the product planning and research was derived from kind of market research I did with them. I also attended some courses run by industry associations like the Global Payroll Association in the UK and the Global Payroll Management Institute in the US. And all of the courses I attended had multinational global payroll leaders in the room. So they all became kind of guinea pigs for questions on what the software should be. And some of them became very good kind of peer testers for the earlier versions of the software and what they would need to pass in terms of procurement. So that helped in terms of the designing of the platform for it to be ready earlier and very market relevant. To find the first customers, I did tap into kind of a network of companies I knew myself and the payroll providers, asking them, do you have multinational clients who could benefit from this? But the first two actually were companies that had a payroll problem internationally, and they were introduced to me through their like domestic Irish payroll provider and said, if it's a question outside of Ireland, you should chat to Fidelma. She'll know how to solve it. And then I'd talk to them and I'd say, well, okay, I'll help you solve this one now, but the software will prevent it happening again. So that way I signed them up and solved that problem for them at the time with their local provider in other countries or with a reporting question. And then we set them up on the platform, and then those problems didn't arise again.
And now that you're somewhat further on in terms of your journey, I mean, it must be, I think it's a little but just over a year and a bit ago, you got your Series A and you raised, I think, is it 8 million euros?
Yeah.
So, I mean, since then, how has your approach to marketing and sales changed?
Yeah, substantially. So we closed the Series A funding in May 2021. So a year and a half ago now, or just a bit more. First of all, at the time that we raised it, we had 27 people working in Payslip, and within 5 months we had 74. So that was a big jump in terms of the size of the team. In terms of sales and marketing, before that, when we had the 27, there was one full-time salesperson, and I was, doing it part-time. Whereas we then established a full structured team. So we hired a great VP of Sales and Alliances who came out of Workday. He used to run the Global Payroll Partner Program in Workday for 9 years, Mark Simons. And then Mark set about building all the normal SaaS sales structures in behind that. So we have a BDR team, we have an AE team, we have someone who works on RFPs, and then we have kind of sales enablement staffing directly there or apportioned from relevant, product and engineering teams to help out. We really started hiring those people from August 21 until probably about March 2022. So it was probably within 10 months of the raise, but we only kind of kicked off the recruitment properly about 2 months after that, once we had a line of sight that Mark was coming in. I hit that role was the most important first. And at the same time, in parallel, we did have a good marketing team and go-to-market plans. We did increase the budget substantially, which was important. And then we also did add some extra people in terms of the digital marketing management, and also the thought leadership was important. He had just started, but we took some of the work that he had that wasn't thought leadership and the content writing, and so expanded that. And then lastly, we also hired additional kind of solution consultant, extra people that would be able to span across that, and a product marketing manager. So we did, I can't tell you the numbers off the top of my head, but we would have probably had let me just think now, 2, probably 3.5 people in marketing beforehand, and then 1 person in sales. And within a year later, we had 6 people in marketing and about 10 people across sales. So a big jump in the staffing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that scaled up then obviously all of the attack on the market.
I speak to sort of various organizations, and whenever I have a conversation, especially with a fledgling B2B organization that's looking to get in front of more enterprise level customers, I think they are under some form of illusion that they can kind of turn on a bit of paid activity and the leads will kind of come flooding in.
No.
And I don't think that they put enough effort into the thought leadership that you were kind of talking about, and the demand generation activity, kind of without giving away your secret sauce. Could you kind of give us like an overview of kind of like the activity that you're running to kind of drive awareness for Payslip and bring in prospects into your funnel?
Yeah, I think we do all of the, I suppose, structured things, but we're probably getting better at doing it and integrating it. So we have on the marketing side, the most important thing I think is to be absolutely laser focused on the profile of your ICP and the profile of your personas. So for about a year and a half, not anymore, but up until the end of 2021, we were laser focused that the only companies we wanted to talk to were high growth technology companies with more than 1,000 people in more than 5 countries, and ideally on Workday. Like, we had that sentence embedded on every single person's head in the whole company, including from engineering, so that if any other lead came in, or if anybody was at a trade show and met somebody that was outside of that, we'd say, well, why are we talking to them? And the point was about, and this is a really big thing from a startup to try and sell to B2B enterprise companies, you kind of have to look at the universe as being a triangle. This is pretty standard. And at our base of our triangle, we had multinational companies that had less than 500 people. And they were just no go. They were a waste of time. I'd had enough of conversations with them over the years. If they're that small, they have other needs which are more services based. And between 500 and 1,000 was really kind of a grey area that we were only interested if they had enough ambition that they were growing fast, right? And a few other criteria. And then above that, then they were getting bigger. So we were fine with 1 to 3,000, 1 to 5,000. And then if somebody was up here and they had, 200,000 people, and we knew that we had nobody with like 20,000 people in one company, we knew we weren't going to convert them, because even if you were the best product, you weren't going to meet the other criteria. So those building blocks we talked about were peer referenceability, HCM relevant integration capability, delivery team, ISO 27001, then that moved into SOC. And I can't remember what the 5th one was. There was a 5th one. But we had those building blocks to say, regardless if we have the best product in the world, we won't be able to sell up the triangle until we have these things in place. And we knew what size of companies we could sell to when we had 3 of the 5 or 4 of the 5, but not 5 of the 5. And then all of the marketing was designed around that. So, and we knew that we sold best to companies that had a new global payroll leader or had just implemented Workday, whatever it was. And then we absolutely were linear that these are the companies that we were targeting. And then we decided where they were. And then we chose 4 very specific geographies, like down to nearly a county level and a city level. And where we did any broad marketing like Google or LinkedIn, it was going directly just into those geographies. And then the real broad stuff was happening everywhere, other places like our thought leadership. So we also said, well, these are the persona at this stage of a company's growth. The person who owns global payroll is defined like this, and their main pain points are X. And so then all of our thought leadership went into articles around solving those pain points, but we aligned them back to our pillars. And that's what we did. And then everything was focused on that, whether it was on LinkedIn or Google or webinars or podcasts or anything else that we were doing. And then gradually we started to migrate it across in different ways. So if it was on Workday customers, but it might have been in other verticals, or if it was in other verticals, it was something else that was common with the last one. But there always had to be a peer referenceability connection for who you were targeting. So there's some of the things that we were doing. Hopefully that's useful. But yeah, I wouldn't sit around waiting for the web registers to pop in your web form. Like, you have to have a web form. But I can tell you in less than my 2 hands how many of our customers came from a web form, So, but they all have interacted a lot. The one thing I would say in terms of advice is we do use a tool called Lead Forensics, and it's very useful. It's very useful because we can see on it if it's Shameer, he's been in and out on our website 3 times, and he has downloaded this piece of this white paper, and he's been on this webinar. And we're beginning to see a strong pattern so that we can have some predictability to say, by the time somebody's interacted 4 times and they've been involved in a webinar, they're ready to have a conversation. So then let's get talking to them properly. And then it feeds. So there's a very important kind of interaction between the BDRs and the sales team and the marketing analysis of what's working and who's interacting with our content in different ways.
That's a fantastic breakdown of marketing B2B, to be honest with you. It's a completely different animal. I mean, even from our experience, like, I've got a telephone number. No one rings it, though, because that's not how we get in leads. I think I've had 1 lead in 5 years that's called me up.
Yeah. But it is funny. It is good to have a web form, because actually one of our biggest customers did come in. They weren't in our target group at all. They were way up the triangle. They are much bigger than what we were targeting at that time. They had never been on our website before. They had not interacted with anything. And they honestly did a Google search. They found us. They filled out a web form, and we had a proof of concept happening within a couple of months. So you still need to, all your SEO, all the boring stuff kind of has to be right. And then the funny bit is that actually the first web reg we got the day we actually launched was at the end of 2017. This is like nothing to do with substance, but I always think it's funny. The very first real web reg we got in was from Google. We'd done a big launch on the radio and everything in Ireland. And even though Ireland's a small market, there's a lot of global payroll centres in Ireland, the Netherlands and the UK for US companies. So I'd been on the radio, and then I was meeting other people, and it was a really busy PR day. And I was at home and having dinner, and my chief marketing officer, Aoife, rang, and she was like, I think we got a web reg and you need to ring them. And I said, I don't think I need to ring them today. I can ring them on Monday. And she said, I really think you're going to want to ring these people, Fidelma. And I said, who is it? And she said, it's Google. And I said, there's no way Google filled out a web form on our website. That's one of our mates, taking the piss, basically. And she said, that's what I thought the first time he filled it out, but he's after filling it out a second time. And I checked out and he's real. And then I rang the phone call, but I'd had a glass and a half of wine at that point. And anyway, his name is Jeff. And he answered the phone. I nearly fell off the chair. The fact, as you said, I rang the phone and he answered. The real phone was working. And we had a great chat. But I mean, we were too small at that point to sell to Google. But I still know him in the market. And so it's always good to, I say, like the first, I still haven't framed it, but I'm going to frame it at some point and put it up on the wall and go, this was our first web reg. The website worked.
You must be thinking, well, the only way is up from here, really.
Yeah, indeed. But it was, why not start with the largest search engine in the world? But they were never going to use us at that point because we hadn't the building blocks in place. So I should probably give them a buzz and ask them if they want to talk to me now. I haven't talked to them recently.
You can, absolutely, you should. You never know. Talking about web forms, we had a similar thing. We had an inquiry come in, and when you get the mobile phone numbers, someone puts in a fake mobile phone number, it's like 07 something,
Yeah.
and then it ended with like 111, 111.
Yeah.
And then it was 123456. And I thought, that's, it's a fake lead. But, early days, I was desperate for leads. So I thought, I'll give it a call. And I called up the number, and it was actually the person's actual genuine number, and he'd gone and bought that number, and it ended 123456.
That's amazing.
They became a client.
That's very funny. Yeah.
So sometimes you just can't tell.
Yeah. The other big marketing question when you're setting up a B2B enterprise company is branding and what you actually call your company, because there are very few top level domains left anymore. And people ask me about this because the company is called Payslip and our platform is called Payslip, which is obviously a word that is in the Webster English Dictionary. And if it's in the Webster English Dictionary, you can't trademark the word, right? That's just a fact, right? And I knew that before I chose it. My viewpoint was I wanted to build something that was like Workday, but for global payroll operations. And when you're selling into the American market or any market, I wanted a word that I hadn't made up the spelling of, and I wanted that if I said it on the phone, people could understand it and would be able to spell it and write it down and remember it and keep it simple. And it took a huge amount of effort to come up with something that was market relevant and met those criteria. You can argue either way. It could be more specific and it would be easier. But I do think that's an important point. And then obviously getting the domain, it took me 9 months to get the payslip.com domain. So there was lots of interesting marketing kind of research and activity happening behind that. But that's the fun part when you're setting up a B2B software company. Sure, you had the same. Yeah. How did you decide on Growth Gorillas?
I was called something else before. And
something good, I hope.
No, it was horrendous. It was a terrible name. And I was at the point where I was about to throw in the towel as well, actually. And I was just sort of surfing around the internet. And I came across this other agency called Growth Rabbit. And I thought, why would anybody
call themselves a rabbit? Why would you call it?
Yeah, I was like, why would anyone work with an agency called Growth Rabbit? It doesn't really embody like strength and power and confidence.
Yeah.
Real fluffy thing.
Yeah. And I thought to myself, you're going to be eaten.
Yeah. Exactly. I was like, what conveys strength? And I thought, gorilla, Growth Gorilla. 800-pound gorilla in the room and all of this sort of stuff. And I thought, that sounds pretty cool.
Yeah. I think that's great.
I went on to GoDaddy. It was the .co.uk was there, Brilliant. So I bought it straight away. And it was also the day I decided to give the agency another go, and I relaunched it. And then, it made the world of difference as well, actually.
Yeah, that's very good. Yeah, I don't know if you've ever talked to the guys from Teamwork. Do you know Peter Coppinger from Teamwork? It's a software company based in Cork in Ireland. It's a bit like Slack. It's different. It's for team collaboration, and he won't want me saying that now. Team collaboration and project management. But they had grown out of something else as well. They were a services company. They found there was no useful tool to manage their own work. They built it themselves as their own app. Then they got some customers. They got the customers using it. It was collaborating. The customers loved it. So then they kind of did a new UI on it, a UX. They did loads of projects. And then they thought, let's rebrand this. And he decided he wanted teamwork.com, and he has this fantastic story explaining it, so I won't take it away now. But basically, they had X amount in their bank account, and at least according to his story, they paid X minus €5 for the entire domain, and his co-founders were ready to shoot him. But it's a great story. And honestly, they went viral, and the brand helped hugely. So, and it was like a big relaunch. So it's very gutsy. It's a really important, gutsy thing to do.
I'm a little bit more conservative in that. I probably wouldn't put the entire bank balance on a URL. But equally, I think it is important to be memorable, and it helps you stay front of mind. For us, no one ever forgets Growth Gorilla.
Yeah.
I always get a comment about it. And our tagline in the early days used to be ready to go ape shit as well. So I'd actually, when I first have a conversation with people, they turn around and go, oh, love the tagline on the site. But my marketing manager convinced me, and I reluctantly removed that. We're a little bit more grown up now, you see. So
yeah.
The kind of question where I kind of want to think about is moving a little bit more sort of thinking about the future. What's kind of the plans for Payslip? Is it more of the same? Or, are there new features, new markets, new things that you're going after?
Yeah, so I can bore you for a long time about new features, just to warn you. And I know payroll automated validations are like a tough topic for your listenership, so I won't do that. Being straighter about it, so the platform is up and running. We could stop developing it more, and it's way ahead of anything that's out there in the market. The global payroll industries generally has always been a very services-based industry. It all comes out of kind of a concept of accounting services. So if you go to any of the global payroll industry conferences for the last 20 plus years, up until when we joined, the only option was to go for a services solution like ADP as a managed service solution or the accountancy firms. So we were kind of a new concept in the market that payroll process management is fundamentally broken and you need a tool to do it, just like, you know, a HR platform was a new concept 20 years ago, right? And now everybody has a HR, everybody, like, do you have a HCM, Growth Gorillas?
We actually don't know, but
it'll be soon.
It's imminently going to arrive. Yeah.
Exactly. So we went and licensed one once we got to 50 people because you need it. You have too much data floating around at this point in time and documents and to protect it. And so like it's a given now that when you get to a certain size, everybody gets a HCM. It's not like that yet in global payroll operations, but give me 20 years and it'll be like that. But what is really important is Gartner, in terms of like a voice of the market, Gartner has an annual report. And in 2019, they introduced a new category, especially for what we do. So we have been category defining in the industry, which is phenomenal. And we are category leading in that they've nobody else they can put in the category yet. So that's great. We talk to them all the time, tell them the new stuff we're doing. In terms of like depth or breadth of product, the platform is working really well. We've done a huge amount of, like, as I said, you've like payroll for hundreds of thousands of people being processed every month across more than 80 countries. We've great clients, like from the Asian side of the house, like Olympus is big. They're a med tech company. From the US side of the house, you've really big tech companies like Databricks and Cloudera. I'm trying to make sure I don't trip over certain people I'm not to mention. And now we've like, this is fintech. So EQT is a investment PE firm in the Nordics. You've Houlihan Lokey Investment Bank in the States. So we've like really good customers, absolutely blue chip customers, and they're all using the platform as it is. We have gone very deep on automated validations, and we will continue to do many of those things that aren't big flags that people think about, but are massively valuable to our customers. We're also we've already automated the accounting reporting that's needed, like general ledgers. We've already automated for some customers all the banking, and we're kind of doing a broader thing on the banking and payments this year. So that's quite interesting. We've done a lot of research in the market, and we've chosen some of the more innovative companies there to partner with. So there'll be a nice automated payment solution going out to the market, in a few months' time. So that's the most interesting. And where it's really going in future is, I would see, is like the personalization of payroll. Like if you, Shameer, now have, just say you have a few thousand people in the UK and you need 4 people in Estonia or 5 people in Germany. Year 1, you offer them a great salary so they come on board. But by year 2, they're beginning to ask you about health insurance, and year 3, it's pension. How are you going to know what's normal in those countries or what's needed? Whereas at Payslip, because we've solved core data issues and calendar issues, and we have all these providers coming in with all of our customers from around the world, we've built up this phenomenal library of partners around the world. And our customers gradually will be going through our platform to say, now I need some additional value-added benefits for my great new hire, Shameer. I don't want to have to kind of work it all out. It's already in the system. I'm just going to give Shameer an a la carte additional budget of, say, 10K. He can choose what he does with it. And it's already set up to be compliant in that country. So that kind of personalization of payroll will help employers a lot, especially in the talent war, which is still out there, notwithstanding all the commentary about recessions. So that's quite good. And then I suppose on the kind of client penetration side of things in Payslip, we announced our Workday partnership last week. So we're really excited about that. And we're the only, obviously, company that does what we do, partnering with Workday. So we'll continue to partner with lots of their clients. And we also have good clients going live who are on SuccessFactors and moving across to the cloud. But we really see that we're going to continue to grow up the triangle for the average size of the customers are getting bigger all the time.
Let's jump into our quick fire round. What podcasts are you actually listening to at the moment?
I've stopped listening to podcasts. Actually, it was a New Year's resolution because I was listening to too many podcasts. So now the only time I kind of really listen to something outside of like work and the kids in the evening is when I'm running in the mornings. So I'm actually at the current mode kind of going back through 1980s music. So I have not got a good answer for you on podcasts because my brain is in overload. Like there's just too many extra data points and ideas, things coming in all the time. So for running, I find I'm best either running and listening to the birds, or I'm listening to some music, and then I always have something kind of solved for the end of the run.
Are you reading any books at the moment, or is there any that you would recommend?
I have about 4 books on the go at any point in time, and they're very diverse. I don't know that you're going to like any of them. I am reading a book about the famine in Ireland at the moment. Well, I always have some kind of a book about the famine on the go because I'm quite interested in the topic. We didn't really learn about it much when we were younger. So that's specifically about how female orphans were all put on boats and sent across to Australia, basically because they had nowhere else to go. And they were usually aged 15 and over, and they were basically married off into Australia in the 1840s. So that has nothing to do with fintech, but that's quite interesting. I'm quite a big fan of Malcolm Gladwell, so I'm reading back through one of his books, which is called David versus Goliath at the moment. I don't know if you've read that one. It has an interesting perspective on how disadvantages can be massive opportunities. And I always kind of find I rethink of something in there. And then the third one is one of Milan Kundera's books, because I always revert to those. So I'm a big fan of that.
I'll be honest, the first two are quite interesting. I'll end up digressing massively, but I've been really reading into the Asian expulsion from Uganda.
Okay.
So my parents from Uganda, my grandparents, which I just found out were born in Uganda.
Wow.
So I'm actually more Ugandan than I am Indian.
Okay.
So I'm just very, very interested in that and how, like, I suppose the distribution of the Asian community across Europe, UK, and Canada. It's fascinating. A bit like,
the famine.
The famine, young girls going to Australia. It's like how you end up with a whole people being displaced and put into a new territory.
So what time period was that, Shameer?
So that was in the 70s.
The 1970s?
1970s,
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You should send me a link to one of those. I'd be interested in reading about that. Yeah. So the Irish famine was in 1840s, and Ireland's the only country in Europe, maybe more countries, maybe the world, but that has a lower population now than in 1841. And my local town had 15,000 people in 1841, and now it has 4,000. 15,000 to 4,000. Imagine.
Wow.
So there's lots to do there, but other countries benefited. There's a lot of people in Cleveland, Ohio, that were originally rated to here. So there you go.
The Americans that have Irish heritage are hugely proud of it, aren't they? They they're very clear to go. I'm 1/4, 1/2 Irish on my mother's side.
Yeah.
They're big advocates.
Okay, I haven't met a Uganda Indian Irish mix yet. No, so we'll have to. We can introduce all our kids and see what's going on.
Amazing. Well, Fidelma, I'm just conscious of time, but it's been amazing having you on. Thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you very much. Good to talk to you, Shameer. Looking forward to that history book.
The FML podcast is brought to you by Growth Gorilla. To find out how our marketing growth experts can boost your fintech's growth, head to growthgorilla.co.uk. And make sure to search for the FML podcast in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or anywhere else podcasts are found. Don't forget to click follow to ensure you don't miss any future episodes. On behalf of the team here at Growth Gorilla, thanks for listening.